Right, let's talk about where Celtic stand in Europe right now. And spoiler alert, it's not all doom and gloom, but it's definitely a bit of a reality check. With the team gearing up for the next clash in the Europa League, it feels like the perfect time to dig into this whole UEFA coefficient drama and what it actually means for Celtic's future, both in terms of qualification routes and the money side of things. And yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. So, let's rewind a little. There was a time not long ago when Scotland was flying high in the UEFA rankings, floating around 9th to 11th place between 2020 and 2024. Those were the golden days when winning the Scottish Premiership meant you were straight into the Champions League group stage, no questions asked. Celtic benefited big time from that. 3 years in a row, automatic qualification. Pure bliss. But fast forward to now, and it's a different story. Scotland slipped in the rankings, ended last season in 14th place, and as of the current live rankings, we're sitting at 18th. That's a serious drop, and it has consequences. Now, here's the thing. The coefficient ranking from a given season doesn't kick in immediately. There's always a year lag. So even though Scotland finished 14th last season, we're only going to feel that impact next year. For this current season, we're still working off the ranking from when we were 11th, which means if Celtic win the league this year, we'll only need to get through one round of Champions League qualifiers next summer. But if that ranking keeps falling, and it's looking like we'll finish this season at around 18th, then starting from the season after next, the Scottish champions will need to navigate 3 rounds of qualifiers just to get into the group stage. Back to the dark ages of European football for us. And look, we've been there before. The mid-2010s were brutal. Clubs like Maribor, Malmo, Cluj, names that still trigger flashbacks, all caused Celtic serious problems. So the idea of going through 3 intense qualifying rounds again is not exactly comforting. And that's just for the champions. If Celtic don't win the league in a given year, then forget Champions League football altogether. At best, we'd be looking at the Europa League or, worse, the Conference League. It's a slippery slope and one that we have to take seriously. But, and here's where things get slightly more optimistic, there's still a path forward. UEFA has this rule that could, in the right scenario, throw a lifeline to clubs like Celtic. Basically, if the Champions League winner already qualifies through their domestic league, like Paris Saint-Germain did, then the spare group stage spot goes to the highest-ranked team in the champions' path of qualifying. So even if you're starting in the first round, if you've got the best coefficient of all the national champions in that path, you could get parachuted straight into the group stage. No qualifiers. That's exactly what happened to Olympiacos this summer. They were supposed to enter in the second round, but got bumped straight to the group phase. That's the kind of boost that comes from building a solid European coefficient. Now let's look at where Celtic actually stand in that regard. Right now, the club's UEFA coefficient is 36. That puts us 58th in Europe. That's not terrible, but it's definitely not where a club of Celtic stature should be. We're sandwiched between the likes of Karabag and Ferencváros. Solid teams, sure, but not ones we should be rubbing shoulders with in the rankings. The positive here is that 16 of those 36 points came just from last season. That shows how much one good European run can do for your standing. Wins, draws, finishing position, they all count. For context, here's how those 16 points were built up last season. We had 3 wins in the group stage, each worth 2 points. That's 6. Then 3 draws, 1 point each. Up to 9. The other 7 came as bonus points for finishing 21st in the overall Champions League table. That's huge. Now, fast forward to this season in the Europa League. The good news is that UEFA awards the same number of points for wins and draws in the Europa League as they do in the Champions League. 2 points for a win, 1 for a draw. We've already banked a point from the draw in Belgrade. If we beat Braga on Thursday, that's another 2. And so on. But here's the catch. The Europa League doesn't offer the same kind of bonus points that the Champions League does. So even if Celtic finished top of their Europa League group, they'd still earn less bonus points than they did for finishing 21st in the Champions League last season. That's the trade-off. But the flip side is that matches in the Europa League are, let's say, less brutal. You're not going toe-to-toe with Real Madrid or Bayern Munich every week. That means more chances to actually win games. And those points, even if they're a bit leaner, still add up. Just look at Olympiacos again. They finished 7th in the Europa League last season. Didn't play Champions League, didn't need to. but their coefficient is now over 50. They won the Conference League the year before that. It just shows that racking up points consistently, even outside the top-tier competition, can put you in a position of real strength. So what does that mean for Celtic going forward? Basically, even if we're out of the Champions League this season, we can still make serious progress. The target should be to get into that 50-plus coefficient range. That would not only improve our seeding for future qualifiers, but also give us a real shot at that potential automatic spot if the Champions League winner opens up a place again. But to do that, Celtic have to perform in Europe. Not just participate, actually perform. Win matches. Go deep into the competition. Win a knockout tie. That's something we haven't done in far too long. And until we do, we're going to be stuck in that mid-table coefficient zone. So yeah, the situation isn't ideal, but it's also not irreversible. With a strong run in the Europa League, Celtic can build momentum, rack up points, and start climbing the rankings again. The path is there. It's just a matter of whether we can walk it. And that all starts with Thursday's match. The Europa League might not have the glamour of the Champions League, but in the grand scheme of things, it might be exactly what Celtic need right now. A platform to regroup, to compete, and to rebuild our European credibility one game at a time. Now that we've gone through the UEFA coefficient landscape, let's shift focus to something just as important, the financial picture. Because, let's be honest, in modern football, money talks. And where Celtic play in Europe directly affects how much money the club brings in. The Champions League, as you'd probably expect, is an absolute goldmine compared to anything else. The Europa League? Still valuable, but nowhere near the same level. And when you break down the numbers, it becomes crystal clear why missing out on Europe's top table hits so hard, especially for a club like Celtic that relies on European income to stretch its financial muscle. So let's start with the basics. Participation fees. Just for showing up in the Champions League group stage, UEFA pays out around 18.6 million euros. That's before a ball is even kicked. Now compare that to the Europa League, where simply qualifying for the group stage gets you about 4.3 million. That's less than a quarter of the Champions League's payout. Straight away, you're seeing the kind of financial gap we're talking about. Celtic this season are already down more than 14 million euros just by not making the Champions League. That's massive, and it sets the tone for everything else. Then you've got prize money for results. A win in the Champions League group stage is worth 2.1 million euros. A draw, 700,000. In the Europa League, a win is 450,000. A draw? Just 150. So even if Celtic went unbeaten in their Europa League group and picked up 5 or 6 wins, they still wouldn't earn as much as they would with just 2 or 3 wins in the Champions League. That's the reality. You're playing more games, facing weaker teams, but earning less. And while the Europa League might offer more chances to pick up points for the coefficient, it doesn't offer the same financial rewards. Then there's UEFA's performance bonus system, which pays out based on where you finish in the overall league phase table. Last season, Celtic finished 21st in the Champions League standings and earned a bonus of 7 million euros. In the Europa League, even if you finished first overall, you wouldn't get that much. Top spot in the Europa League table gives you around 2.7 million euros. And if you finish at the bottom, 75,000. That's a drop in the bucket compared to the Champions League's bottom payout of 275,000. It all adds up, or doesn't, in the case of the Europa League. Now, there are other financial mechanisms at play too, like the value pillar, which is this complex formula UEFA uses to distribute even more money based on things like TV market and past European performance. But that's a rabbit hole we don't really need to go down right now, especially with both Celtic and Rangers in the same competition again, something that hasn't happened for a while and makes those calculations even messier. The key point is this: the Champions League is where the serious money is. The Europa League pays, sure, but it's not in the same galaxy. And that matters, especially when you're trying to run a club at a high level and remain competitive both domestically and in Europe. So what did Celtic actually make from last season's Champions League campaign? The estimates put the figure at around £37 million. That includes participation fees, prize money for wins and draws, bonuses from the league phase ranking, a bit from the knockout playoff round, and the value pillar contribution. What it doesn't include is match day revenue. Ticket sales, hospitality, merchandise, all of that. When you factor those in, you're likely pushing 40 million. And for a club in the Scottish Premiership, that's transformational money. That's the kind of revenue that allows you to spend big on players, improve infrastructure, and invest in the squad without worrying too much about balancing the books. Compare that to the Europa League, where the ceiling is far lower. Even if Celtic go on a deep run and make it out of the group stage, the total financial return probably won't come close to what they earned from the Champions League group stage alone. Rangers, to give an example, reportedly earned about £15 million from the Europa League group phase last season. That's not bad. It's certainly a lot more than what any Scottish club could hope to earn from the domestic setup. But again, it's still less than half of what Celtic brought in from the Champions League. So you can see how big the difference is. And this financial gap creates a challenge, because while playing in the Europa League offers a better chance at success on the pitch, it also means tightening the belt when it comes to spending. There's less prize money, less visibility, and less commercial impact. Fans might still turn up, but it doesn't have the same shine. You're not getting the same global audience. Sponsors don't value it the same way. And while Celtic Park under the lights on a Thursday night can still be special, it doesn't compare to the buzz of a Champions League night against the likes of Real Madrid or Bayern. That kind of occasion generates not just money, but prestige. But let's be clear, that doesn't mean the Europa League should be written off. Far from it. There's still money to be made, points to be earned, and reputation to build. And as we've seen with clubs like Olympiacos, a strong performance in the Europa or even the Conference League can significantly boost your UEFA coefficient and set you up for future seasons. It's about playing the long game. If Celtic can pick up, say, 11 or 12 coefficient points this season, even without going deep into the tournament, that could be enough to replace the low-scoring seasons that are about to drop off the 5-year rolling average. That alone could push Celtic back up the rankings and improve our seedings for future qualifiers. And look, we all want the big nights back. The Champions League anthem, the sold-out crowd, the whole thing. But you don't get there by just wishing for it. You get there by doing the hard work now, winning games, building consistency, and making yourself hard to ignore. The Europa League is a platform. It might not be the one we wanted, but it's the one we've got. And how Celtic use it this season could shape the club's future in Europe for years to come. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. A whisper has begun to travel through the streets of Glasgow, the kind of murmur that only football can conjure in this city. Rumor has it that Aaron Hickey, the prodigal fullback who once cut his teeth at Tynecastle before heading south and then abroad, may be on the brink of a return north, and not to just any side. The talk in the pubs and the chatter on the terraces point towards Celtic Park, where many believe Hickey could be the answer to a long-standing question down the left flank. Supporters know the Hoops have flirted with vulnerability at the back in recent campaigns, strong going forward but occasionally brittle when pressed in the wide areas. Hickey's name, therefore, is being whispered with an almost mythical sense of timing. A player forged in the Scottish game but sharpened in Italy and tested in the Premier League, he carries the sort of pedigree that Celtic fans dream of seeing in the green and white Hoops. His youth belies his experience, and at just 22, he already looks a figure capable of bringing calm assurance to the defense. It would be a remarkable homecoming. Born in the city, with roots tangled deep in its footballing culture, Hickey returning to Glasgow feels more like the arc of a story than the stroke of a transfer. The suggestion alone has set tongues wagging. Is it mere gossip spun in the lull before winter fixtures, or something more substantial stirring in the background corridors of Parkhead? Managers and directors keep their cards close, as always, and the player himself has offered no public word. Yet, the energy of the rumor carries weight, the sort of restless anticipation that can swell into conviction. The thought of Hickey surging down the left wing, shutting down opposition forwards while sparking Celtic counters, has already taken root in the imagination of the faithful. For now, it remains a murmur, a tale told in hushed tones on late-night buses and in packed supporters' clubs. But in Glasgow, whispers have a way of becoming headlines. And if Aaron Hickey truly does return to blind the left side in Celtic colours, it could mark one of the most significant shifts in the season's story. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.